Earlier today, we ended up getting our first official look at some of the content coming throughout the week for Call of Duty Black Ops 4 Zombies as a part of the San Diego Comic-Con festivities going on, in which we'll get a lot more information, a lot of information straight from the developers, a lot of different features and new things coming to the game, and all sorts of things like that. And along with that, it once again started today with a brand new trailer for Voyage of Despair as well as 9. Now, little known fact to maybe a lot of you guys, I am absolutely a massive Zombies fan. I grew up playing this mode, and it's something that even a large number of you actually might be here on the channel from whenever we did our stuff with Zombies Chronicles a little bit over a year ago at this point. And so therefore, I'm excited to jump back into some Zombies experiences, and hopefully you guys do enjoy that kind of content. But regardless, I wanted to break down 17 different things that you might have missed here in this newest trailer for Voyage of Despair as well as 9, and then also afterwards go into some stuff that might actually be a little bit of a leak, but also something that I think is very important to share with you guys, so I wanted to share it nonetheless. So that said, we'll be breaking it down here for this firstly, then jump into some more speculative stuff. But first things first, if you missed the trailer, here it is. Check it out.
I haven't seen my father in 15 years. Why am I not surprised his obsessions are still getting me in trouble? As a kid, I believed my father's stories. As an adult, I believed his stories were fantasy.
Scarlett, we all owe your father a great debt. We will do whatever it takes to get him back. This is magic. Dark magic.
I put a spell on you. Stop the things you do.
Let's tango! So, Monsieur Shaw, do you have an explanation for the horrors unfolding around us?
These symbols, this vessel, it's all connected!
I stared into the abyss, and the abyss gave me a gun.
I think I'm in love.
Use the staff, now!
Where are we?
It's not a matter of where, Diego, but when.
Time travel. Great. Let's find something to shoot.
Do not fret. Your savior is here. Scott, look out!
I put a spell on you.
So one of the first things you'll probably notice whenever we jump into this trailer is we get a cinematic shot of the RMS Titanic. Now, whenever we take a look at this, we can see a couple of different things from this opening sequence. One, we can end up seeing on the far right, almost what looks like underneath of, but in terms of relativity, it's actually probably to the side on the edge of the boat, is what we see potentially as a perk vapor, something we'll see in the form of one of the mythic statues. We see those scattered across the maps in both Voyage of Despair and 9 in this trailer, but we see that in the opening sequence here at this. We see that we end up having buyable wall locations as well as different buyable entrances for different areas of the map, and these look to be denoted by floating orbs in a sense. No longer the chalk outlines on the wall or just the debris there, kind of following similarly to what we've seen with, say, Revelations and the floating barricades similar to Garad Krovi, but towards the very end of this sequence, right before it flips to a different scene, we end up seeing in the upper left what looks to be the mystery box location on this specific instance. Obviously, we know the mystery box is randomized and it does change around, so for this particular case, it looks like it's right there, but it does confirm that obviously it's coming back, and we see that also again later in the trailer as well. The next thing I really want to point out is that of the zombies, because after a few cinematic sequences where we take a look at the hallways of the Titanic, we also see some zombies climb in, and of course, what would a zombies trailer be without zombies all throughout? So you'll see this throughout the entire trailer, but the eyes are yellow in this particular case. Now, this is something that we were told it's going to be a different storyline as what we've explored since World at War and Primus and Ultimus and the Transit Crew. That entire story arc of multiple games is a different story than what they're trying to tell with these in Voyage of Despair as well as 9. So it may be of relevant information, but it may also not be considering the change in the storyline. But with the eye color denoting who controls the zombies in the past few story arcs of zombies, I figured it would be safe to at least mention it. So bear that in mind. It might have something to do with the story arc, but we'll see in time. After our first run-in and encounter with a zombie with yellow eyes, we end up seeing that if you fast forward a little bit further, you end up seeing the first of what will be a couple of different mythological gods throughout these trailers. The first one looking very much so like Ra. We also see Zeus, we see Poseidon, but these are, from what we're told, going to denote the perk vapors within these maps, and I'll be interested to see what turns out to be what perk vapor and how it works out in that sense, but it is something you'll notice these all throughout the trailer, and that is what they're going to be dealing with. Now, after a bit of reuse of the trailer sequences that we saw back at the reveal, we end up getting a little bit more of a look at some of the different locations on the map in Voyage of Despair, what looks to be a sort of grand ballroom, some upper hallways and different corridors, but also we end up seeing the deck a little bit further, and the one thing that is really interesting to me is that we see a sort of veiny tissue material covering a lot of these different things, and there seems to be sort of different pods taking form as well, so we'll see if this plays out anything like how it did in Zetsubo no Shima, but for the time being, that sort of veiny tar-looking substance is quite interesting to look at. After that, as well as a little bit more of a look at some of the different perk vapor statues with the mythical gods on them and some of the text that is more than likely going to be some sort of cipher or some key to an Easter egg or something like that. Something that will definitely be long-standing as well, very similar to how we saw it within Black Ops 3 with the Apothicon and the Keeper languages as well. We end up seeing a little bit of footage of the brand new mystery box on Voyage of Despair, and in it, not only does it look absolutely awesome, we end up seeing two weapons cycle through, one looking to be the swordfish and one that looks to be a new SMG perhaps. We haven't seen that one just yet out of the gameplay that we've already seen of Black Ops 4, but interesting nonetheless. But then directly after that, we end up seeing Scarlet with what looks to be maybe the new wonder weapons or potentially character-specific weapons that can be interchanged, and we'll talk about that in just a second right after this breakdown. But it does have something of what looks to be a shotgun, but also a sword that kind of has a whip effect that whenever you use it, it whips out and slices through, but whenever you're done with your attack, it comes back and reassembles as a sword, which looks absolutely awesome mechanic-wise. Afterwards, we see some smaller pieces in the grand scale of thing, one being, though, an underwater section, which might actually have a new SMG or AR focused in that as well. There's a very brief look at it, so I can't really make out exactly what it is, and it's from afar, so I can't see if it's something we've already seen and tell you that definitively or not. But we also then afterwards see a little bit of what looks to be a Molotov cocktail coming back as some sort of usable feature within this map in particular, at least. But then after that, we start to come towards the end of the Voyage of Despair section, in which we see a zombie transform into the boss zombie from what we saw at the reveal trailer of 9. That's something in which we then see the staff placed down, and it puts up a shield of sorts, and it looks to slow the zombies down as they're approaching, but it also looks like it teleports our characters to 9. So this can go either one of two ways. One, it's something that's just cinematic purpose only. It's just a transition from the Voyage of Despair trailer to the portion of the trailer with 9 as the main focus. But one thing that makes me wonder is this a crossover? Is this going to be something that these maps are playable separately, but are also tethered together and potentially even playable in one go and interconnected literally? That by either triggering some sort of Easter egg or something in which something else happens, but it's something that we end up switching maps and times entirely. Now, we saw this with the Tortured Path. We saw that we had a 3-in-1 experience, but who's to say that Treyarch doesn't one-up that and weave those together? We also end up additionally seeing that we teleport into 9 at the very beginning here, and again, that might just be cinematic, but that teleporting is very similar to things that we've seen in much smaller portions in the past, from things like teleporting to the theater to Pack-a-Punch and Kino, from the depths of the map map on 5, all the way to things like the boss room in Revelations. So who's to say that we don't have that, but pretty much on steroids, where we can play an entirely different map and it's tethered together in that sense. One thing that also stands out to me is that in the trailer you end up seeing that it says these symbols, this vessel, it's all connected. So what if it's all connected literally? But not to dwell on what may be a crazy conspiracy theory for too long, but we flash over to 9. Obviously, we start to see the stuff for the trailer there. We end up seeing some cinematic shots of the crowd, some sequences where there are the different symbols in the background, which I'm definitely curious of. But after some intense battles with zombies and showing off some of the weaponry once again, we do see a quick second where we see Thor's hammer as a usable item. Now, it's something that this hammer is also something supposedly going to be player specific, but also can be customized and put with whatever character you're using, but it's something that is designated as one of the user and character weapons, not something out of the box, if you get what I mean. But it looks to act very similar to the Ragnarok DG4 from Der Eisendrache. So interested to see how this will be attainable, how useful it will be. But with the electrical effect, I'm definitely all for checking it out, and it has my attention. After that, we end up seeing what was teased a little bit to start this whole week of things from Call of Duty yesterday, that being a tiger. Now, couldn't tell you if this is going to replace Hellhounds or it's going to be a boss zombie of its own and a boss round on its own, but the tiger does make an effect, the zombified tiger. It looks awesome. Definitely want to hear more about that, but it's a big focal point here that they wanted to point out for sure, especially using it to kind of promo the marketing material for all of this over on Twitter the other day. Now after that, we end up seeing once again one of those user-specific weapons being the Harpoon, and the disc, which we can see tears through enemies with ease. It looks pretty awesome. Almost reminds me of the Hell's Retriever from Mob of the Dead, but I don't know if it's exactly going to act the same and give us also another melee with that other disc in hand. But after that, we end up seeing one thing that caught my attention, and it might be, again, very small compared to what people will care about. We see a sequence where our characters are running through an archway, and through that, the camera kind of lingers for just a second, and we can see what looks to me like a trap switch for that. So traps, again, will, of course, be returning, seemingly, and that's what I would take away from that particular sequence as well. Following that, we end up seeing that we do have another boss zombie. What reminds me a lot of Brutus, a sort of massive and armored character, this sort of boss knight zombie. I'm curious if this will be, say, an endgame boss or something that every 10 rounds or so happens where you have to take him down. I have no idea, but it's something definitely to point out. You can see also in this, they're fighting in a ritual chamber, which is going to be very interesting because it might be an end game once again. It looks like there's a little bit of the Aether and 115 potentially up top whenever you have that panned out cinematic sequence of it. But we also, finally, for rounding off the things you'll see that isn't weaponry, and we'll talk about that in just a second, is that sliding has an effect here in this one. I don't know if it's going to be something that sliding is the go-to mechanic, or we have both dolphin diving and sliding, but it is something we've seen previously in Black Ops 3, but was something that a lot of people really had hoped for of dolphin diving, simply because dolphin diving is iconic. But the final thing that I want to mention is that all throughout this trailer, we've had a various number of looks at new and returning weapons. We had the Brecci at one point making a return. We had the Rampart 17. We had some new SMGs, one being in that mystery box and then one potentially in that underwater sequence. Whether that was an SMG or an AR, I guess that's still up for debate. Then we also saw a dual-barreled LMG at the beginning of 9. And so there's going to be a lot of cool stuff here, and some already teased to us. Whether any of these make their way over into MP, I would imagine so, but right now it's unconfirmed. So that's 17 things that you may have missed from the trailer, but again, I mentioned we might talk about a little bit of a leak here, and so I want to break this down for you guys real quickly before we wrap up the video. This comes from a Reddit user named Omnipotentum, to which he ended up posting a thread called Zombies Information, Special Weapons, Blood of the Dead Cinematic, and more, to which he detailed some of the things that we'd end up getting and even saw in this trailer before the trailer went live. He posted this a few minutes before the trailer itself went live to the general public, and so therefore, kind of in my mind, validates a little bit of what he has here on hand. Now, he talks about the personal weapons for each character, how Shaw will have a sword, Scarlet will have a staff, Diego will have a harpoon and disc, and Bruno will have the hammer, but they can be interchangeable. But he also goes on to mention a lot of different things with the Primus crew having their own personal weapons, and also a little bit about the cinematic opening up in the cryostasis lab, but also Blood of the Dead having different portions of Mob of the Dead that we've not seen and some returning things. So I'll leave that full link down there in the description below if you guys want to check that out, but it's something that this might be a relevant post here to take a look at and to use further going forward, especially if this guy posts much more stuff, because like I said, he dropped this before it happened, and some of this already checks out from what we saw with Voyage of Despair 9. And with more things coming out over the next couple of days regarding zombies, and presumably maybe even some Blackout stuff or some multiplayer stuff with Comic-Con on the horizon here and starting in just a day or so, we're gonna have a lot to discuss and maybe even cross-reference with some of this. So again, check that out if you guys want to, but it was definitely interesting, but hopefully this helped you out in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully this was insightful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you guys excited for Black Ops 4 Zombies? I know that I am incredibly hyped for it, so hopefully you guys are excited for the content. I definitely would love to do some zombie stuff for you, so if you're interested in that, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding Call of Duty Black Ops 4 Zombies, Blackout, multiplayer, all that good stuff. We got you covered here up on the channel, so if any of that interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And also, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, get a little more active over there, so feel free to follow on that front as well. With all that said and out of the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. Thanks for sticking around for this, what seemingly is a very, very long video compared to normal. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys later. Have a great day, take care, and peace.